Start our California edition. I'm Brad Pomerance, and we are joined by Gloria Negrete-McLeod. She is a member of the United States Congress, but she has announced she is not running for re-election after one term. She is running for the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors. Wow, what a surprise for so many people. I think you're the first person since the 90s that voluntarily chose not to run for re-election for the United States Congress after one term. Why?
Congress is the right place for the right people. I happen to be. That wasn't the place for me.
Why?
I think that I feel more comfortable being local, being able to represent the constituents, take care of local issues as opposed to those bigger, that kind of a commute, that kind of a, it's just very different.
I know that while you were in Sacramento, you were part of the majority party. In Congress, you were part of the minority party. Did that play into it, the fact that you were in the minority party?
Well, you're a minority party, but you're still the same person. You still try to get things done. You still try to do the same thing. So I don't know that that was a real factor. I think just the differentness of being in Congress as being, you know, whether you're a state legislator or whether you're at home.
At the same time, we hear that the environment in Washington is toxic, that members don't get along from different parties. Were you feeling that as well?
No, you know, I've always been a friendly person. You know, of course, we know all of the California delegation, which is 53.
Right.
So that's a lot of people. And then I tried to make friends with the Republican colleagues, you know, talk to them like I would to anyone else, and whether you're a district member or whatever.
What's so interesting about the state of California, many folks may not realize how much power, and I don't use that term pejoratively, but power members of boards of supervisors maintain. There is a tremendous amount that can be done as a member of the Board of Supervisors, especially in a county like San Bernardino, which is so large geographically and has a decent amount of unincorporated areas. I'm not sure if your district has a large amount of unincorporated, but you get my point.
Yeah, actually, the District 4 has the smallest amount of unincorporated area. But as I talked to people, and I went to the CEO of the county, you know, and I said, so what exactly are the issues here? What is it that the county does specifically? He went on to tell me, as the other board members have told me, that the biggest thing that they do, number one, is health and welfare.
Right.
Then the second biggest thing is public safety. Then everything falls in after that. And of course, there are little nits and gnats that everybody doesn't even realize that that's what they do. You know, roads, libraries, all of those little things that people take for granted in daily life.
Which you seem to enjoy, as you said.
Yes.
I mean, you like to serve the local communities.
That's true.
You mentioned health and welfare, and there is no doubt that the way counties are delivering health and welfare services, especially health care, changing dramatically as a result of the Affordable Care Act. Now, you have a bird's eye view, having been in Congress for a few years, as well as in Sacramento, on the Affordable Care Act. What can you tell us about that new law, which has rolled out, and most would say has rolled out fairly successfully in California, as compared to other states?
Well, let me say this. In the state legislature, I served on the health committee for 10 years. The last 2 years I didn't, when they were really implementing the Affordable Health Care Act in California, which has now become Covered California. And so, to my shame, I didn't pay enough attention. So then when I went to Congress, they already had passed the act. So then I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball, so I have been very diligently trying to figure out what it is. And so we want to make sure that in California, those people that need to be covered are. And so it's part of the county's mandate that they serve those people. So that's something I will be working on.
But I want to ask you more about California. The CBO, Congressional Budget Office, as you know, a nonpartisan organization, put out some projections before the Affordable Care Act rolled out. In 49 states, his projections were too high. In California, they were too low. In other words, California is surpassing the projections of the CBO. Why is it, in your mind, that California has taken so kindly, I guess you could say, to the Affordable Care Act, signing up in huge numbers.
I think because they were ready. As I said, they started to get ready as soon as the Affordable Health Care Act passed.
Mr. Schwarzenegger, a Republican, was right out front in getting enabling legislation signed up.
So they made sure that the money came that was going to come to California to being able to initiate that act quickly, and luckily for California, and there's another state too, Kentucky,
I know,
that has done the same thing.
It is very interesting. A fairly red state, Kentucky, is also, in the best sense, the poster child for the Affordable Care Act
And
success.
I think there's a couple of other
Oh,
states.
there are some, don't get me wrong, but
So,
California, the big kahuna, I mean, that's the state that is really driving. I mean, right now, I think over 5 million folks have signed up for the Affordable Care Act, well over 1 million in California.
But they still have a little problems that I hear about, that they call our office and say the line is down or whatever.
And let's talk about one subset of problems, and that is those individuals who live in California that are of Latino descent. What we know...
We talked about this the last time.
We have, but I want to continue the conversation because it's an important point. When you look at California's population, I mean, a significant number of Latinos, many are documented. I mean, undeniably, and therefore eligible for the Affordable Care Act. In the early months, we know that registration in covered California amongst Latinos was not where it should have been. The numbers have increased, but we still see a lower enrollment rate than had been desired. What's happening there?
I think that's true for Latinos, but I think it's true for all ethnicities, because I've heard people say, "Oh man, I've got to sign up for this thing by the 31st, and I haven't done it," or they're going to take part of my income tax.
Sure.
And so I think people were just kind of.
They're just getting there?
Well, yeah, I think that they were waiting, or whatever their reasoning.
What are you hearing, though, amongst your constituents that are Latinos? Is there a fear about getting involved? Because even if they're documented, they don't want their name involved in a government database.
Really, we have not had, in my district, we really have not had a lot of calls on the Affordable Health Care Act.
Really?
Because there's a bunch of other groups, nonprofits, the Covered California.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of groups in the Inland Empire that are working to enroll people outside of Covered California that want to make sure that everybody's getting enrolled. So for my office, we get very few calls on that.
It's good to hear, presumably. So as you're running for the Board of Supervisors, what are your goals as you march forward? You're having a lot of background, state, federal. You talked about health and welfare. You talked about roads and bridges.
Make sure that the county, if it draws down money from the state and the federal government, that we spend it accordingly and rightly. And also to make sure that San Bernardino County continues on its right track. You know, there was a lot of
challenging times.
Challenging times.
Yeah, and we must discuss that, because outside of the 3rd district where you are running, the 3rd district the 4th district where you're running was not as dramatically impacted by the housing downturn as some other parts of the county. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but I think about the high desert and I think about the city of San Bernardino. Would you get a small sliver of that in your district?
No.
So, I mean, really hammered by the economic downturn. Have we seen a nice turnaround?
I think there has been. I know Fontana is growing, and of course the cost of houses has started to rise, and so people are coming back in. You notice it. You go to restaurants; they're full. You see people on the roads, especially the good movements. When the down times were down, the trains that come across my district right through it were very slight and little. Now they're like every 15 minutes. You get those long.
No, I hear you. I hear.
So we know that the good movements are started again. We know that the economy is moving. Just go to any restaurant, go to any theater, and you see people just living their lives again.
Her name is Gloria Negrete-McLeod. She is a member of the United States Congress, also a candidate for the Board of Supervisors in San Bernardino County. My name is Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back on California Edition.
Which county is the largest geographically in the United States? Elko County, Nevada, Coconino County, Arizona, Inyo County, California, or San Bernardino County, California? San Bernardino County is the largest county geographically in the United States.
It's California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance. I'm glad you're with us. Our guest is Helene Lohr. She is a commissioner on the Los Angeles County Insurance Commission. She has been a farmer's agent for 38 years. And when we think about insurance, we think about the need to have it. But we also think about the need to make sure we are not victims of insurance fraud.
Correct.
And so I want to talk about that over the next few minutes or so. Talk to us about insurance fraud from your perspective as an agent.
Well, my personal thing has been that insurance fraud inflates the costs not only of insurance for everybody, but really much it permeates about everything that we do. And it's the second largest white-collar crime behind tax evasion.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe you. I think about some of the insurance scams. There's the hits, the causing a car accident to
Right.
occur. I used to work on a daytime talk show many years ago in the 90s, and I remember we did a few episodes about workers' comp fraud.
Oh boy.
And yeah, oh boy. And it is amazing how people try to take advantage of the system. There would be investigators following people around because they suspected that the individual really hadn't hurt their back, and they'd see them surfing at the ocean or skateboarding or skiing.
Exactly.
And so, but the key to remember, and you've essentially said it, is that we are paying out on this disability claim. And that means that insurance rates, by definition, will rise.
Correct. And each business owner has to raise the price of their product or service because they are paying out higher rates for it.
And the types of insurance fraud that we see most often, correct me if I'm wrong, auto and workers' comp, is that correct?
That's correct. And that's what we're going to be focusing on.
And I remember one time, this was really distressing to me, I was rear-ended.
Okay.
It's okay, it happens, no big deal. And the adjuster said, are you going to make any claims, medical claims? I said, no, I wasn't hurt.
Okay.
Why should I make a claim? I wasn't hurt. He said, well, let me at least pay you $100 just so we can, close the file. I said, I didn't get hurt. I don't want $100. We need to give you $100. But that just shows you what we're finding is this litigious society where they need to be able to sign a settlement agreement.
Well, that's true. That's the first thing they try to do. Mm-hmm. But by the same token, years ago, I had somebody that I knew that got rear-ended. And they went to the doctor. They were really fine. But they said to me, well, a friend of mine told me that I should go get a lawyer. They had offered her for her car repair and any doctor bills about $5,000. So she got the lawyer, she continued to go to the doctor. At the end, they paid out $15,000. The lawyer got $5,000, the doctor got $5,000, and she ended up with the same $5,000 she would have had in the first place.
But who loses? We do.
Exactly. All of us.
And so, exciting development. You're involved in this. Tell us what the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors is doing for the month of May.
Okay, for the month of May, they will be declaring the month of May as Insurance Fraud Awareness Month in Los Angeles County. And, we see, the thing is you see in the paper, once a year, we've got this fraud ring and everything. But it doesn't really make people aware of what is fraud, how to, know what it is. People will inflate things because they think it's commonplace that, I'll say that I lost this much personal property in a fire. Or, they'll try to get the body shop to pay for a little other dent. So it's all there, and there's very commonplace things that people just don't realize are fraud. And that's what happens. So we're trying to educate people.
So what can we do, just as folks, be it in Los Angeles County or Del Norte County, what can we do to adjust our behavior? Or if we sense that insurance fraud is happening around us?
Well, the thing is, I'm not looking for people to be, big brother and just call on the phone.
No, I understand.
But there are, there's the LA County Commission on Insurance. It's lacic.org. And you can go there and you will get a link to the insurance department in Sacramento. There is really a huge fraud ring. As a matter of fact, if you go on the website for the Department of Insurance. There's a whole section on fraud that you could spend the day really looking at. And so we're just urging people to find out more about what fraud is, educate them, and also, if it's really significant fraud, to report it. DAs are working all the time. And you know, we talk about the cost to us. I mean, the costs for our taxes that go to prosecute some of these things, again, there's some more cost to it. So we're just trying to reach out to people and say, keep your eye open, know what it is, please don't do it, and
what do you
yeah,
do? What should one do? What would you recommend if you feel as if, especially in the automobile context,
okay,
that you have become a victim of, what are they called, smash and run or
squat? Yeah, they have a number of names.
Yeah, what do you do if you feel as if this is a scam?
Well, first of all, you report it to your insurance company, okay?
And let them know you believe this was not an accident, but
Correct.
something that was premeditated.
Correct. Now, the thing is, they have to deal in good faith with every claim that they do.
Of course.
So they can't just deny a claim because
Right.
they think that. But you can also go to the Department of Insurance anonymously and report something that's going on that you think, and they will look into it. There have been hundreds of cases, even thousands, that are assigned through the Department of Insurance to the local DAs, and they look into it and determine if it's worth prosecuting, and there have been a lot of arrests.
Are there though? Because sometimes folks will feel as if, you know, mine's just a small case, they're not going to pay attention, but I'm sure this was premeditated. How do I make sure that action is taken?
That is really not up to the individual.
Of course it
All
is.
the individual can really do is report it, and then the DA office looks into it, and they determine if they think it's worth pursuing. There have been a lot of arrests, and of the arrests, a lot of convictions.
What about the flip side? You do suffer a claim, an injury at work,
Okay.
but there's some skepticism when you make a claim. You're not committing fraud.
No,
I swear
you're not,
not
and we're
committing
not
fraud.
telling people not to put
Right,
that in.
but what do you do if you're facing a skeptical insurance company, a skeptical insurance agent?
At that point, you may need an attorney.
Right.
Okay, but the insurance companies really want to take care of it. They're not there to deny claims, and I work with adjusters all the time.
I have to tell you, I used to think that insurance companies were there to deny claims. I admit it, I was that person. But I was in an accident and my car was totaled.
Okay.
And I was so pleased with how well the insurance company interacted with me. It's an
Right.
anecdote, I admit that. But anecdotes matter to people. And that was my feeling. That
Well,
they were
they
there.
were there.
They were there. They understood. And they made the totaling, is it called the total decision? I mean, they made the decision that the car was totaled. It wasn't clear. It was just there was some very
Right,
severe
there's
damage.
a way to do that.
Right.
But people are very skeptical about insurance.
Very.
But the insurance companies don't require you to have it. The state of California requires liability insurance. Your lender will require insurance on your home. By law, you have to have workers' compensation.
Right.
So the insurance companies are providing a product. The problem is it's intangible.
Right.
You don't always need it, and you pay it, and then when it
Right.
comes to your turn, you go, well, I think I'll jack up this claim
Well,
because
I
I've been
refu-
paying
yeah,
all this
I
time.
personally refuse to do that.
Good.
I mean, I remember when the car was totaled, oh, well, just pay me, just get me a new car.
Right.
I don't want anything additional.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a saint, believe me. I'm really not a saint. but honestly, because it matters, it all comes around.
It all comes around, and we want people to look at it and know that it is fraud. It's a felony, actually.
No doubt. Okay, her name is Helene Lohr. She is a member of the Commission on Insurance for Los Angeles County. To learn more about Fraud Awareness Month in the insurance industry, it is May, and the website is lacic.org. My name is Brad Pomerance, and you are watching Charter California Edition.
What are the yearly costs of non-medical insurance fraud in the United States? $975 million, $12.4 billion, $27.8 billion, or $40 billion. According to the FBI, the total cost of non-health insurance fraud is estimated to be more than $40 billion per year.
Welcome back. This is Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. She is back. She is Ana Cubas. She is with the Latina Public Service Academy, and congratulations. You recently announced that you have accepted 20 young women into your academy. For our viewers that aren't familiar with the academy, what are these women going to be doing?
Well, they're going to receive information about public service, about running for political office. The initiative focuses on 11th and 12th grade young ladies. Latinas, right. The goal is to prepare the new generation to take on leadership roles in the public sector and to run for office.
I want to ask you about these young women and their families. My guess is that the vast majority of these young women, likely born in America, their parents maybe not. Mm-hmm. And their parents probably came to America because they were fleeing oppression. And so are the parents nervous about their daughters even considering government service?
Well, in reading the essays, some of the young ladies indicated that their parents were very supportive.
Okay.
Now, it is true the majority come from their parents come from El Salvador,
Right.
Guatemala, Mexico. So
Right.
I'm just so glad that they will have this exposure to a possibility in their lives that they may not have thought about, or their families may never have thought about.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I mean, you don't speak with an accent, so people may not realize you are from El Salvador. Mm-hmm. You grew up in El Salvador until you were 10?
That's right.
I mean, forgive me, I may sound like a sycophant, but what a great role model.
Thank you.
You know, what does that mean to them? You know, what are you trying to tell them? Look, here I am. You know?
Right. It's the American dream story.
Right.
So I came to this country when I was 10 years old. My family
Did you
and
speak a word of English?
No.
Not a word.
And in fact, I remember my first day of school at public school
Where?
in Los Angeles at Edison Elementary
Got it.
School. My knees were shaking so hard, I thought I would keel over.
Pobrecita.
Imagine this 10-year-old little girl. And this country is great. Our teachers are wonderful. And within 2 years, I transitioned into regular English-only classrooms. And I was tested for the Gifted and Talented Education Program, or the GATES program.
Mistake, I'm sure. Mistake, I'm sure. Of
course,
but you did advance.
I passed.
You did, wow.
And what was critical about that test is that it set me on the path
Right.
to college. It tracked me now into the classes I needed to succeed.
In El Salvador, did you go to school?
I did.
Was there a gifted program?
There was not. There was not.
I mean,
Everyone was in the same classroom.
Did your parents know of your academic prowess?
I did win academic prizes in my classrooms.
Okay,
yes.
so there was some sense, but if you had stayed in El Salvador, would you have been on that path to college?
No.
No.
And in fact, Brad, the other day I was reflecting on my life and I thought I could have been dead. Because there's so many children and families that perished during the war.
Right.
I came during the worst part of the war, the early 80s.
Right.
And I remember as a child having to obtain an ID, an identification, because even children were being targeted and found in ditches on sides of the roads. And so the government wanted you to have an ID so that if something happened to you, you would have that with you, and we were required to have our IDs at all times.
So you ran for public office, became very close to being elected to the Los Angeles City Council. You're a rumored candidate for the Los Angeles Community College District. What do your parents think of all this, given that background, that the government may or may not be your friend?
Well, some of my relatives were supportive and some were hesitant.
Really?
Yes, but as soon as they saw what my agenda was, what my platform is, the support that I gained from other individuals, they jumped on board. They threw humble little fundraisers in their backyard with a barbecue where the relatives were putting in cash and collecting checks to help me. And my mom actually walked door to door on multiple occasions.
She's the head of hair. I mean, is she just the queen of the pack?
Well, she was in my campaign office.
She La Reina. I want to ask you about another element of government involvement, and that is as it relates to healthcare. As we know, the state has a fairly high uninsured rate. 60% of the state's uninsured are Latino. We also know that these Latinos, many of them citizens eligible for the Affordable Care Act, not signing up with Covered California at the rate of their uninsurance or at their population. It's only about 20-25%. Does that have to do with, in your mind, this kind of subtle fear of government? What's happening?
I believe so. I believe there is that fear. Obviously, the language barrier. Many of our population are scared to pick up the phone and make a call. Maybe they can't use the computer. I know in my family, my relatives relied on me, even as a teenager, to be their translator, to go to public officials when there were issues that came up in our family. So there is that fear. The other part too is the stigma of having government assistance. So many of our families also are kind of worried about that.
It's so interesting you say that, because there is a narrative out there, and that narrative is immigrants from Central and South America, they're coming here to be on the public dime. They're not here to work. They're just taking public services. And yet, this is just my anecdotal perception, is that, look, everyone's unique, but immigrants from Central and South America, very proud and really are here to work.
Yes, and I mean, we're no different than any other immigrant group. The
But
Irish,
arguably you are.
the Italian, the Jewish. We are here to work
yeah.
hard. Now, there is some aspect, if you come from Central America or even South American countries where there was persecution, there was civil war and strife, there is more caution in terms of how you deal with government and what you think of government. In fact, during my campaign, I faced this a lot when I went door to door. Whether you're an immigrant from Mexico or El Salvador, people thought, oh, all politicians are corrupt, all governments are corrupt. So there is that element of trust and faith that we are facing.
And what about the fact that you're a Salvadorana and not a Mexicana? Or a Mexicana?
Sometimes that was an issue because there is a bit of competition.
Which I recently learned, I had no idea.
Yes, and the issue there is the Salvadorans are the more recent immigrants.
Right.
So we haven't assimilated as much yet, and you have a rich tradition of Mexican and Mexican Americans. Obviously, being in this country
it's the
before the United States was the United States.
It's the same with the Jewish immigrant experience. German Jews were the first to come, and then the Polish and Eastern European Jews, and the Germans looked down on the Polish because they were the newer ones, and I guess it's a very similar situation.
But I'll tell you a great story.
Please.
So many of the applicants to the program,
Yes,
the Latina
yes,
Public
let's go back,
Service
sure.
Academy, I see, because this is one question we asked in the application, what is your ethnic background? Many of them have mixed ethnic background. Mexican and Salvadoran is the predominant mix. So I was very excited to see that because now it's in their hands. This is the new generation that will lead us to really truly achieve the American dream for all of us.
And in achieving the American dream, we do need to realize that we have obligations and responsibilities like healthcare.
That's right.
And so what are you doing? What can be done to talk to the Latino population specifically, because we continue to see numbers disproportionate to where they should be?
Well, what I do is I use social media to advertise that we need to sign up for healthcare. There is a strategy to reach the Spanish TV market, I've noticed.
Yeah. I mean, they're spending, I think it's $80 million or something like that.
And frankly, too, it's at the dinner table or the family barbecue. I know I will see my family soon this weekend, and we'll have a conversation about healthcare. And so we need our community to sign up. The other aspect, too, is to let people know what are the penalties for not signing up.
I mean, there's the individual mandate.
And some people fear the penalty.
Right.
They may not understand the incentive, but most of us understand the penalties.
She's Ana Cubas. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Charter, California edition.